morning.
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 I was privileged enough to be able to co-facilitate Raising My Voice, which is a program for those that were previously incarcerated to tell their stories. We had a wonderful event, and right now I want to introduce you to Cassandra Trevino. Cassandra, will you tell us your story?
Yes, thank you, Dar. Love at first sight. Is there such a thing? At first, I didn't believe it existed, but the moment I met him, my dreams of love came true. Instantly, there was a connection. I was flooded with countless emotions in a single moment. By New Year's Eve, I was down on one knee asking the man to marry me. As we said our wedding vows, I had visions of a happily ever after. He was everything I wanted in a man and so much more, or so I thought. Fast forward 6 months, I began to recognize the quirks, baggage, red flags that I tried to paint pink, and everything in between. A year into the marriage, the infidelity began. He would try to make excuses for his behavior under the guise that he was just making new friends. The evidence became too much for me to ignore. My trust in him had been broken. I felt dirty, betrayed, ashamed, not sure if I would survive. How was I ever going to overcome the pain? All I could do was sob hysterically for weeks, maybe even months. I can still remember the exact time I fell apart at the seams. It's locked in my memory bank forever. I kept asking myself, why me? It was clear we had unequal appetites. Nothing was left but lingering doubt that I just couldn't shake. It was time for me to move on. In the coming years, much more was revealed about his antics and multiple flings. When this new information came to light, it brought up all those old feelings. It felt like I was drowning, being pounded by violent water, beaten against the dirty rocks. Occasionally, I made it to the surface, long enough to get some air to keep me alive, and then another current would come and drag me back down again. The additional betrayal left me depressed and questioning if I could ever allow myself to be vulnerable again. Heartbroken and devastated, I sat in misery for much longer than necessary. Did I lose trust or vulnerability first? Questioning my own judgment and the intentions of those around me, I began to pull away and isolate. I was a shell of my former self, hollow and unfulfilled. I began to fill the void with drugs. Somewhere along the line, I compromised myself, my values, and my sense of right and wrong. Drugs certainly expedited my path to incarceration, but I was in prison mentally and emotionally long before I was physically. The walls, both physical and metaphoric, separated me from so much beauty and kept me disconnected from love. Though they served as my protector, they came at a high cost. Days turned into months, which turned into years, and through the passing of time, I began to wake up inside. The realization that my awakening would lead to feeling emotions that I buried for so long scared me. But I knew that feeling human again and creating connections was dependent on me leaning into my emotions and allowing myself to be vulnerable. To first trust myself so that I can eventually trust others, I just had to get out of my own way. Vulnerability is love, it's trust, it's letting others see my true self, my imperfect, unfiltered, and questioning self. I always used to say that I'm an open book, but someone had to open up the book to get the content. I found trust in a woman I met in prison. We shared the same space for who knows how long, But as luck would have it one day, we met at just the right moment. Ironically enough, in the laundry room, the same place where we would wash our clothes and dirty dishes. My initial impression of the woman who would eventually become my confidant and mentor was that she was assertive and a bit sharp around the edges, which was completely different than me. But I decided I was going to take an emotional gamble, expose my fears, flaws, and insecurities. Through the process of laying myself bare, I discovered how much I needed that human connection. As our friendship grew, I began to trust her more and more and started to become less guarded. The anxiety and fear slowly started to fade away. God had given me such a gift by putting her in my path. Even if I didn't know I needed someone, He did. She had my best interest at heart. My friend and mentor continued to support and love me as I faced my past and dreamed of my future. During the times that I didn't have much to say, she would sit with me in silence. It felt so good to feel safe again. Finally, someone that showed up for me emotionally. Knowing that I no longer had to navigate my ups and downs alone was an amazing feeling. Oh, how miserable it was for me to believe I had to do it all on my own. Not only do I not have to do it alone, but I have people in my life who are willing to go to the ends of the earth with me as long as I'm willing to let them in. So today, I'm living authentically, courageously, and unapologetically vulnerable. Had I not taken that leap of faith, I might still be in prison today, not physically, but one of my own making. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. Get to a place where we're truly living authentically and refrain from building walls in front of those we love. Love grows within its waves of vulnerable moments too precious to pass by. By breaking down the emotional walls, it opens us up to new relationships, different perspectives, positive changes, and to being our true self. There is a world of amazing experiences just waiting, so be your most bravest self and be vulnerable. Thank you.